And this is from Chronicle, September 18th, newspapers, friends and families. Ben straightens Patterson's twisted facts and unveiling Amelia falls. But ladies and gentlemen, you must know that by now, you would have had hydro at 50% or less of the rate you pay for GPL power. And strange enough, the propaganda and the evil that was shared against the falls, because usually, like when the APNU AFC took over, anything good that the previous government did, including a booklet that we did as a group in the National Commission of Law and Order, which this man, without Parliament's approval, had discredited and dismissed the National Commission of Law and Order, and a booklet identifying gangs. And if you're hearing a lot of saying about the gangs of the murder of West Coast Burmese, and I went in and I spoke twice to the former minister, and he say he don't think we have gangs and it's not a problem, and the police was advising him different. But we know the commissioner was working with us was advising us different, because it gives the parents a chance and the teachers how to identify gangs. But because it was coming out in Mr. Rohi's time, the minister does not want to give credit, and that is a sad thing. You always give credit on what is good by a government previous to years that they put out. You try to stay with it. Like how you stayed with the East Coast Highway. That's not an APNU project, even though they tried to show it. That was a Donald Ramotar project. His government. But the APNU finished it. So you could have finished Amelia Falls and stopped the propaganda. You made a great mistake, and that was one of them. And Americans were solidly behind it, as were the European Union and the IMF and the World Bank. The only people who were against it was the APNU AFC. And I'm telling you again, I'm not no enemy of the APNU AFC. When I say these things, I'm trying to pull the conscience out of the heart to save Guyanese, to save Guyana, and try to save themselves by trying to do what is right. Friends and families, brothers and sisters, let me start the reading on this. By Navendra Siraj, Chronicle, Friday, September 18th. Amidst an uproar from the opposition side of the National Assembly, Minister of Home Affairs Robson Ben called out opposition member of Parliament for his erroneous statements about the Amelia Falls hydro project, which were developed by the past People's Progressive Party administrations. Minister Ben, who served as Minister of Public Works under past PPPC administration, defended the programs which were rolled out under his watch. Patterson, in a prior presentation during the budget 2020 debates, said the former APNU and AFC administration found no implementable project which was elected to office in 2015. Well, a commentary, they were saying they were going to go more for solar, but very little was done. And I would like to know, an accounting to be done, what was done with the amount of money they received that were done for these kinds of things. I know the Amerindians or the indigenous got a small part of solar, not enough. Not even the communities of Afro-Guyanese, comprising mostly of the APNU supporters, or the Indo-Guyanese, comprising more of the PPP supporters. The poor ones especially did not get any support for electricity in the form of solar power or helping to pay their electricity. So I would like an audit of those monies that came from Norway, that was negotiated by the current Vice President, Dr. Bharat Jagdev, and who was the former president and champion of the earth, former President Dr. Bharat Jagdev. I want to know what happened to that money. And I'm going to push and push and push in the same articles that I do in the newspaper here until something is done by the current government to launch an investigation. Back to the article. In responding to this claim, Minister Ben was interrupted by loud heckling from opposition MPs who desisted after Speaker of the National Assembly, Manzoor Nadir, intervened. They are reminding me of certain animals in the wild who start to make noise in the Amazon jungles late at night and misbehaving so that people cannot hear. But the Honorable Speaker of the House, Mansour Nadir, had to put them in their place. Contrary to Patterson's claims, Ben said projects such as the West Coast Demerara Road Expansion Project, the East Coast Demerara Road Expansion Project, and even the Chadijagan International Airport Expansion Project were inherited by the former administration, but not even completed in some cases. We know that the East Coast Highway, my friends, still is incomplete. 5 years Patterson had 5 years. Several times I had to call out their ministry and their PR people and their engineers to come and see the evil that was being done by the contractors and the negligence of their engineers looking after the people's interest, friends and families. I had to call them several times. But they did come out, and they did have to implement certain things where destruction of vehicles and lives could have taken place. The Chadijagan International Airport, imagine they had 5 years inherited from the former PPPC regime, and they come out of power and can't even finish it. That is painful, and I'm not speaking as a political operative. I'm speaking as a commentator and a reader. Ladies and gentlemen, back to the article. And Minister Ben continues. So you cannot come here and say those things, said Minister Ben, noting that a lot was done under the successive PPPC administrations. Turning his attention to the Amelia Falls project, the minister said the former APNU EFC government refused to put money into the potentially lucrative initiative. The Amelia Falls hydro project was designed as a 165 megawatt facility. The minister even advised Patterson and his colleagues to read the Norwegian company Norconsult report on the Amelia Falls project. And both sides, the PPPC, where we're getting money from, and including Norway, whose money was going towards that, for us to get a better form of electricity, recommended it, and he's advising them to read. He seems to be insinuating that some of them don't know to read, or they're lazy to read, because they will know better. Even our friend Norway advised, the IDB, the World Bank, the European Union, the American, and some of that electricity was to be sold. It was with free power, ladies and gentlemen. Free power, and therefore free money. I am a great supporter of the falls, but because they planted certain things in some of their supporters' heads, they're going to say, oh, it will run out of water, as if there was no plan for a reservoir of water. Friends and families, how despicable, how petty and childish some politicians can be. Back to the article. The Stockbrook News in 2017 released some of the findings of the review. And among those findings was a point that the only realistic path for Guyana towards an emission-free electricity sector is by developing its hydro power potential. And the fastest way forward is to maintain Amelia Falls hydro project, and the first major step for substituting its current oil-fired generation. Here is a man, an intellectual, the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, a man of strength and power. You don't joke with him. They humiliated him many times while in opposition. They dragged him out of the Artichoke Conference Center. They treated him like a dog. But he stood in power and strength for his people, the people of Guyana, and the party that he believed and loved in. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, he's a scientist, a geologist, one who knows the ways of the earth and how to save and conserve for the betterment of Guyanese and our environment. Back to the article. Even now, Ben believes that the Amelia Falls project is viable, as it will provide thousands of megawatts of renewable energy. And as I said before commentary, that much of that would have been sold overseas, friends and family, which money would have gone to maintain, and therefore they could have made a profit, even though we would have had less than 50% electrical charge. And Guyana would be on the road of industrial development and growth. Back to the article. It is renewable, and it could be brought to use. It will allow us to move on to the next project, the Tipiru Falls project, which will allow us thousands of megawatts of export power to Brazil. Said to me, how some people, I'm sorry, man, how some people's brains seem to be dead because they didn't want the PPP to get some credit. So we will get so many thousands of megawatt, hundreds of megawatt to satisfy our needs and export some, right? And then they will move on to the Tipiru Falls project after that, using some of the monies they would have gotten from exporting power. My words, ladies and gentlemen. And then they would have gotten thousands of megawatts of export power from Tipiru to send to Brazil for payment, for money. You see, some people don't have it in the DNA. Ladies and gentlemen, some people don't have business in the DNA. And some people who have the DNA in certain entities are sometimes put to Watchman newspaper, an article in a newspaper, on how he can fix himself so he can look good in a photograph or a newspaper. That's the reality. Back to the article. He said the records show that even opposition leader Joseph Harmon and former Minister of Education under the coalition government, Rupert Rupert, while in opposition under former PPPC government, were flown into the interior, and after reviewing the project outline, agreed it was good. Rupert Rupert and Joseph Harmon had agreed it was good. And also, ladies and gentlemen, Ramjatan was ready and willing to vote for the project when they had the separate seats as the real AFC, who were representing the people as AFC, and who had sold out their character and their dignity and their honor because of bread and butter, power, and more perks to buy more drinks that they like. In some cases, it is said alcohol, rum. Back to the article. But Ramjatan did want to vote. I want to give him credit for that. But he didn't. He refused because the PPPC government was not establishing the PPPC, the Public Procurement Commission. And if that was done, then they would have supported the PPPC. And I think there was a certain bit of hard-headedness there on both sides, and maybe the PPPC made a mistake by not supporting that, because the PPC, Public Procurement Commission, did happen not too long after, and we could have had hydro. But then Ramjatan tasted perks of power, and he liked to say to prominent people, haul your. Back to the article. The Guyana Chronicle had reported that the Amelia Falls hydro project is expected to cost just under US $1 billion and will be able to generate 165 megawatts of stable and reliable electricity. 165 megawatts, stable, reliable electricity for 11 solid months of the year, with the additional month during the dry season being used for scheduled maintenance. So 1 month, they might have had some difficulty, so they would have maintained, friends and families. And a lot of that electricity would have been saved for that month as well. My words, ladies and gentlemen, to make up for the month, they would have had saved power, friends and families. Back to the article. The last time this newspaper checked, the project is still bankable, meaning that the financiers are still open to the idea of funding the project, and all the technical studies are still relevant, thank God. Minister Ben and the PPPC government for the vision. And you look out too, when you do wrong things, I'll be coming for you. But do well, take care of your people, protect your Guyanese, and you will be in power for 100 years. Back to the article. Therefore, the restart timeline is expected to be much shorter than it was before 2015. The Guyana Power and Light Incorporated currently sells electricity to the nation at about 0.33 US per kilowatt hour, and this is expected to be reduced by 25% within the first year of the operations of the Amelia Falls project, and by 50% within the 5 years, and by the end of 20 years by as much as 80%. I will not be here living. I'll be gone. But my children, and love Guyanese and think of your country and all races, all ethnicities. Let's work together. Let us work to be one. Opposition leaders work with the government to build a harmony and a nexus of cooperation and understanding so that we can work to create a new constitution. Listen to my words. Read my lips. And listen to my words, so that we can have possibility of a shared governance. You can't think of that now, which you were talking about, Mr. David Arthur Granger, just before you came out of power, when you realized you lost the election and you can't win anything anymore, and you had to, that you were willing to have shared governance. But how could they trust you or your party? The nexus has to be created. Friends and family, your brother, me, Haji, Dr. Roshan Khan, saying thank you. And farewell, friends. Peace, blessings, love, harmony. Let us work as one people for one destiny. And let us be one nation. Farewell, friends.